When the NKVD accused Janusz of espionage and sabotage activities against the Soviet government, he was arrested and tortured. Then he was asked to sign a confession, but Janusz did not do it. Then the commies took on his wife. They forced her to inform on her husband, so that he would be exiled to Siberia. His wife slandered Janusz in his presence, after which she was released, and he was sent to the stage. He was imprisoned in the Gulag camp for 20 years. All around him now was snow, impenetrable forests, mountains, and several dozen poor devils like him. People here turned out to be no better than animals, but how else, because they were kept in inhumane conditions. Janusz was the only one who remained compassionate and kind. When he fed his ration to the prisoner, an American who called himself Mr. Smith advised him not to do that anymore. People like Janusz cannot survive in the Gulag. But an actor named Khabarov appreciated Janusz's act. He immediately got into the new guy, and they became friends. Khabarov explained how everything works here. He showed Janusz the real prisoners, among whom was a man named Valka. He was a gambler and even stabbed one of the prisoners to take his sweater from him. Human life in this place was not valued at all, so the prisoners lived most comfortably. They were the masters here. To survive, some told stories to the Irks, while others drew dirty pictures. This was how they paid for their safety and food. Janusz still had nothing to earn the favor of the prisoners, but Khabarov helped him for free. When he was taken to the shore, he, on the advice of Khabarovsk, buried his clothes in the snow. In the morning, the biting insects left, unable to withstand the cold. Khabarov said he wanted to escape from here. He has a plan, and he even collects provisions to have something to eat during the escape. The actor offers Janusz to accompany him. He readily agrees. After a while, the prisoners, returning from work, get caught in a snowstorm. The guards order them to lie down on the ground, but Smith realizes that they will all freeze to death. Despite the guards' prohibition, he goes into the forest to hide from the wind. The soldier realizes that Smith is right and orders the others to hide between the trees. Thanks to Smith's actions, the prisoners survive. However, later the American, Janusz, and several other people are sent to the mines, and this is certain death. Smith would have preferred to be shot, it would have been faster. While working, Janusz begins to hallucinate. He sees his house and goes to it, but then it turns out that he was trying to get out of the mine, and a guard stopped him. After that, Janusz told Smith that he wanted to escape with Khabarovsk. The American admitted that this actor would never run away. He brainwashes the newcomers to fuel their hopes of escape. Despite Khabarovsk's meanness, Janusz was still planning to escape, and he pulled the actor with him, only he confessed that he did not want to leave here. He's too afraid. Valka saw the two talking and decided to go with them. Besides Vishchik, several other people decided to run. They hid the food so that it would be enough for a long journey. One of them was practically blind, but he was also accepted into the team. Valka also joined Janusz's group. He personally arranged for the boy to escape. Then there's Mr. Smith. He understood that he would not last long in the mines, and he had no other options to survive. They successfully left the camp, but thanks to the blizzard, it turned out to be difficult to track them. Stopping for a rest, Janusz decides to take people to Lake Baikal. There they will be able to cross the border into Mongolia and leave the Soviet Union. However, it is not so easy to determine the right direction. The fugitives have been wandering through the taiga for a long time and are already beginning to lose hope. There is enough food left for a week, and Valka suggests starting to rob the villagers if they reach civilization. Only his idea is not supported. Instead, Smith decides to catch some fish. He makes a hook out of barbed wire. However, eating one fish is also such a pleasure. Valka is not a penguin to eat so many fish. At the next campsite, the fugitives go to get firewood while Janusz makes a fire. Kazik, who saw practically nothing, also goes to collect grass. However, in the taiga, he gets lost and freezes to death. After finding him, the ex-prisoners bury the guy. When spring comes, the fugitives receive an additional source of food worms and larvae. Starving Valka pounces on them greedily, because they have nothing else to eat. They live in a cave and feed on whatever they find. One day, they see a pack of wolves tearing apart an animal carcass. The prisoners chase away the predators and pounce on the meat themselves. They have almost no hope left. Janusz decides to go on a reconnaissance mission. If he finds Baikal, he'll come back and bring the others out. If he does not return, Then the heroic died in the taiga. And Janusz is succeeding. Not to die, of course, but to find Lake Baikal. When he comes to his friends, he tells them that Baikal is 3 days away. The fugitives pack up and hit the road. After a while, Smith notices the surveillance. Turns out that this girl named Irina is following them. She escaped from the collective farm, where the communists brought her by force, having previously killed her entire family. When she noticed the escaped prisoners, she went after them, because it's much better than living in her own house and eating regularly. The fugitives don't want to take her on the team, because it's an extra mouth, and they have nothing to eat themselves. Despite this, Irina continues to follow in their footsteps. One day they see a deer stuck in the mud, kill and eat it. At this moment, Irina joins them, and then they walk together. After a hearty dinner, the fugitives shave, tidy themselves up, get fresh clothes from somewhere and set off again. In this form, they will not be mistaken for escaped prisoners and will not be handed over to the authorities for a reward. Irina manages to get everyone from Janusz's group to talk. Men are willing to tell her about themselves, and even Smith has opened up. He said that he went to Russia with his son, and as a result he was shot and Smith ended up in the Gulag. Soon the group reached the settlement. Valka offered to rob the locals, but the others refused. They could have been tied up, so we need to be more careful. They returned to the forest, and Valka disappeared somewhere. In the evening, he returned with the loot and fed everyone. When it got really warm, clouds of mosquitoes appeared. They ate the fugitives alive, while the mosquitoes did not touch the locals. After learning how they were escaping from the wildebeest, the fugitives used the village repellent. From that day on, their lives became much easier and more enjoyable. After a while, the fugitives reached the border with Mongolia. Here Valka admits that he respects Comrade Stalin, which is why he stuffed his image on his chest. The border is guarded, but the prisoners find an unpatrolled area and cross over to the other side. At the same time, Valka remains at home. He doesn't want to leave the Soviet Union. He and Janusz part as friends. Once in Mongolia, the fugitives realize that the communists have reached this country, which means they can be arrested and returned to the Gulag. It was decided to go to India through the desert and mountains. On the way, they are surrounded by horsemen. They're interested in who these people are and where they're going. Smith says that Irina is his daughter. The riders leave and later send a boy with water to the fugitives. He gives water to strangers so that they don't die in the desert. Janusz determines where the south is, and they walk in that direction. However, the water is quickly running out and Smith suggests turning east. There seem to be trees in this direction, but Janusz thinks it's a mirage. Despite his refusal, Smith leads the group to the mirage, and it turns out that there really are trees and there is even a spring. After taking a break, washing, and taking water with them, the fugitives move on. They see a sandstorm ahead and take shelter from it. Soon thirst overcomes them again, and Irina's legs swell up. They carry her in their arms, but that doesn't help either. The girl dies and is buried in the sand. Tomas follows her to the next world. He loved to draw, and only his sketches remained after him. Some time later, the fugitives manage to find a muddy puddle and quench their thirst. They also kill a snake to get enough. Smith is exhausted, he can't go any further, but Janusz drags him on himself. The American admits that his life is a punishment for bringing his son to Moscow. Janusz understands him, because his wife is now punishing herself in the same way for having betrayed her husband to the NKVD. Janusz wants to return home to tell her that she is not to blame for anything. His story forces Smith to gather his strength and move on. They find water and then the Great Wall of China. After crossing it, the fugitives come to Tibet. From here, Smith travels to China to return to the United States. The rest continue their journey to India. They successfully cross the mountains and end up on tea plantations. Here they are greeted by joyful and friendly Indians. The peasants send for a representative of the authorities, and when he arrives, it turns out that they are ready to accept strangers in the country without documents and without asking unnecessary questions. However, for the time being, Janusz cannot return to his country and reunite with his wife. There is still a war going on, but in May of the 45th it ends. At the same time, the communists are establishing their own regime in Poland. In 56, there is an uprising in Hungary. In 61, the Berlin Wall was built. 7 years later, Soviet troops enter Prague. In the 80s, the Poles began to resist communism and brought their people to power. By the end of the decade, they managed to overthrow the communist regime. And all this time, Janusz could not return to his homeland. But now that his country was free and independent, he came and visited his wife. They both got old. However, Janusz still saw her as the young girl he broke up with many years ago.